I'm going to try something a bit unusual tonight. Let's start the show by hearing from the SNP, you heard me right. This is their Westminster leader, Stephen Flynn, speaking earlier at Prime Minister's Questions.
A Horizon system defended by the current leader of the Liberal Democrats, himself a Knight Bachelor. A Horizon system scandal overseen by a former Conservative Prime Minister who now hides in the House of Lords as a baron. The reality is that sub-postmasters never stood a chance against the Westminster establishment, did they?
Well, he might look like a Bond villain, but I'd call that a win for Flynn. Indeed, where were our elected representatives when the leaders of the land, when this monstrous miscarriage of justice was taking place in broad daylight? Leader of the Lib Dems, Sir Ed Davey, stands accused of ignoring the sub-postmaster's plight back when he was a minister in 2010. Now, unfortunately, he wasn't at the House of Commons today. But I'll be honest, he's often spotted doing embarrassing political stunts next to a ticking clock. By my calculations, Sir Ed, it's you that's running out of time. Questions are also being asked of the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer. Earlier, Starmer called the scandal a, quote, huge injustice. That's a bit rich, isn't it? He was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service when they took 3 post office victims to court. In the words of my good friend and colleague Nigel Farage, hundreds of innocent people were convicted. Starmer did nothing. So it's time for some answers. Really, there are no words that can sum up the horror of this scandal, but 3 spring to mind. Who's to blame? Everyone, really. A corrupt and dishonest corporation in the post office. What a sick joke that we own it, by the way. Deluded civil servants, ruthless lawyers, and arrogant, dismissive, negligent government ministers who forgot who their paymasters are. You and me. The Prime Minister today proposed a new law to quash convictions and give upfront compensation of £75,000. But I don't think that's enough. This story, just like the vain battle for justice for Hillsborough victims, the blood poisoning scandal, the leaseholder cladding debacle, all of this represents the death of people power. Ordinary folk are fighting a losing battle when facing powerful corporations, government departments or the courts. As the brilliant Alison Pearson points out in today's Telegraph, around 70 of these individuals have already passed away through old age and will never see justice. This story has achieved something that I thought was impossible. It's made me ashamed to be British. Now, before my panel gets stuck in, we can never forget the huge human cost at the heart of this story. And I'm joined now by former Post Office manager Nicki, whose life was completely destroyed after she was wrongly accused of stealing £24,000 from a branch in Stroud in Gloucestershire. Nicki, thank you so much for joining us. You've only received £8,000 in compensation so far, and because you've been cleared, you can't receive an official apology. Do you think you'll ever get justice?
The rate it's going, very unlikely. We've tried and tried. I've done 2 decades now. I'm going into my 24th year of fighting this. I lost my business, obviously the post office. My 18-year-old is never known any different. His mum's always been the post office woman. And I've been on the same antidepressants now as I was put on a month after it happened. And their announcements today were just ridiculous. Nothing's changed, has it? They're just, trying to fob us off until the election's done, basically.
What are your thoughts, Nicki, about the compensation cheque that you've received of £8,000?
Well, that was from the group litigation. Obviously, we had to pay litigators. They put a huge amount of money on the line for us to take it to court, the JFSA. And that was what my proportion of it equated to. But it was always on the understanding, certainly from Alan Bates, that we were going to carry on fighting until everybody got their proper redress of what not only have they paid to the post office, because we've all paid thousands to them anyway, and that's all stashed away into the government profits. It's proper redress for 2 decades of my life. It's almost, I was in my 20s when it happened. I'm now in my 50s. And the fight carries on, it just doesn't go away. And all the 555 of the JFSA are getting totally forgotten about. What redress have we got? Up to 75,000 if we qualify. Well, a third of that they've had of my own money anyway, ill-gained money, because they accused me of theft when I'd never stolen anything at all. Then I lost all the contents of my shop, the whole business. And then within 2 weeks, I was in the local newspaper saying I was stealing off of pensioners. We sold our house at a ridiculously cheap price so we could get the hell out of that hamlet, because everybody was talking about it, to the point I went to the supermarket and got spat at, and it was all in my hair from 3 ladies outside. And so, those sort of things. And I waited 2 years for them to take me to Bristol Crown Court for a 3.5-day trial, where I was stood with prison officers next to me for 3.5 days, trying to defend myself against what seemed the most powerful company in the world. But it just happened to be the jury believed me, but the damage had already been done.
Well, it seems to be, Nicki, that the Post Office have stolen a large chunk of your life. It's impacted your mental health. You're on antidepressants. I would imagine you've had other health issues off the back of that, all the stress you've been through, reputational damage, public shame. What about the finances? Have you managed to calculate a figure of how much it's cost you to be falsely accused of a crime you didn't commit? Do you have a figure of how much you've actually lost, do you think?
Yeah, well, Paul Marshall is my barrister who fought Limb 2. Very, very, very good at his job, and he's followed the Post Office scandal from many moons ago. And he instructed me to get a proper independent forensic accountant to calculate those, my losses independently, which we'd done and we had to pay for. And I've also had an independent medical report done as well. We've submitted my full claim into DBT, Department of Business and Trade, nearly 5 months ago now, and I haven't received a penny. So I don't know what Mr. Hollenrake's talking about, that he wants to turn them round in 40 days, because my 40 days is truly gone.
But it must have, Nicki, it must have cost you several £100,000 in lost income from the business going down, the rushed house sale. You must be out of pocket to many thousands of pounds.
Yeah, and I retired when I was 49 because I've had 6 operations. I've not been able to have children from my first one, and I've got so many other health issues that I had to retire with ill health from the local council at 49
Nicki,
anyway.
My heart goes out to you. You're a heroic person. You've cleared your name. My heart goes out to you, what you've been through, absolute living hell. And I know I speak on behalf of my many viewers and listeners that we just wish you every success in pursuing justice, in getting that apology, in getting proper compensation.
I'm not allowed.
And what were you going to say? Sorry, Nicki?
Sorry, I wasn't allowed an apology from the Post Office because I was acquitted. So they've said.
So you won't get an apology. No. Is there a hope that you'll get more compensation, though?
Paul and I and the 555 in JFSA will not stop until I do.
Yeah, well, listen, I think you should get... I'm not going to lie, Nicki, I think you should get millions. And if you were in America, I think you probably would. I do hope you'll talk to us again. You're 1 in a million. It's been a privilege to have you on the show. And take care. Remarkable lady, Nicki Arch there. She cleared her name, but it's destroyed her life.